Okay, hello everybody. I now
Right
see
back.
that we can see us on the live stream. Awesome.
Woohoo!
Chat wants to us have kept the waiting music. We will not keep the waiting music. I apologize. It was driving me a little bit crazy. But we are now finally all here. So yeah, hello everyone, and welcome to Ask the Once and Future Nerd for Book 2, Chapter 5. Finally, after all is said and done, we're here with Ian Harkins, who was, of course, the first one here and not the problem with our technical issues. Hi, Ian.
Hello, I'm glad my good name is cleared.
We're here with Shannon Harris. Shannon, how are you doing?
Hey guys.
And, of course, with Christian T. Kelly Madera. How you doing, Christian?
I am all right. We are here now, and we're doing well.
We're here. We're going. I'm Zach. Hi, everybody. Chat is asking if the YouTube or Discord, the official live stream. As far as I know, the official YouTube live stream should be embedded in our Discord channel. So if you're watching on Discord, it should be linking up to YouTube.
But if I monitor the chat in Discord, am I gonna screw up the thing?
It should not screw up anything.
Okay, here we go.
So why don't you see how that goes?
All right, here we go.
I will be monitoring the YouTube chat.
Okay, I am on Discord. Say hi, everyone. I can see your chats on here. That was an awkward way to say that.
So, in any case, now that we're finally here, hi everybody. Welcome to Ask the Once and Future Nerd, Book 2, Chapter 5. As always, I'd like to start out by saying that if somehow this is your first experience with the Once and Future Nerd, hello, welcome. We're glad you're here. This will have massive, massive spoilers, so please don't start here if this is your first listening to the Once and Future Nerd. We're going to be talking about the plot that happened in the last chapter, so please pause this, go back into your podcast app, and listen to our whole show. We think it's pretty good. So, that being said, let's talk about Book 2, Chapter 5. A lot happened in this chapter. Renault came back, unfortunately. Nia had herself a whole adventure with the elves and her parents. Our favorite Pennsylvanian kids had a heist and or caper. And finally, at long last, we've met some of the residents of the lands east of the mountains, which we will just call orcs for now, because that's easier than saying the people of the lands east of the mountains every single time. So that's kind of what happened in this chapter. Does anyone have anything they'd like to talk about in particular first, or should we just dive right into it?
I'm getting
Are you
some
asking-
questions.
Yeah, are you asking us? Yeah, no. Give the people have been waiting long enough for Christian to sort out his technical problems. So
Okay.
Yes, let's dive in.
So let's dive in. Let's talk about everyone's favorite undead abomination, Renault Desprit, to begin with. So Renault's back. He unfortunately was not destroyed forever. Christian, who does the voice of Renault, how do you feel about Renault being back?
He's so fun to play. I hate the character so much, but he's such a delight to play in the fact he plays to my strengths as an actor, which are not many. He's not a very subtle character, so I can just kind of munch on the scenery and it's fun in that way.
Excellent. I'm glad you have fun with him. One thing I wanted to point out real quick, in this chapter, Renault interacted with a pair of fishing people, and we've gotten some questions, specifically Bruce on our Patreon asked about the actors playing the fisher people, and it turns out they are actually a cameo from the podcast Wooden Overcoats. So Christian, do you want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Wooden Overcoats. If you guys aren't listening to that, it's an audio drama sitcom from the UK about a small island in the channel that the inciting incident of the show is they've always had one funeral home that is very bad and has coasted on being the only funeral home, and now a second funeral home has opened where they're actually good at it, and it's about the competition between those two funeral homes. It's a really really funny show, and great performances all around. And as I was writing those those mariners, I started to realize that I was kind of unconsciously drawing inspiration from two of the main characters from Wooden Overcoats, and I had to choose to either, all right, do I reimagine these characters or do I just lean into it and see if I can get the two actors to come on the show. So I reached out to Felix Trench and Beth Eyre, say, hey, could I, what's the chances we can get a cameo? And they were into it. They liked the script, so we just leaned into it, and they were a delight to work with, and I'm really happy with how that scene came out. So yeah,
it was pretty fun. It was a good scene. Yeah. I feel a little bad for them for getting attacked by the birds, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. What is? By the way, Discord is suggesting, I guess it would be pronounced Tepotolatum if you acronym the people of the lands east of the mountains. So we could stick with Tepotolatum.
Pototolatum. I will try my best to remember Tepotolatum.
I'm gonna put this in our Discord. Stand by. Okay, Tepotolatum.
Tepotolatum.
Okay, we will.
Bless you.
Yeah, right.
I will try to remember that. In any case, moving forward with the plot, one of the features of this chapter were that for the first time in quite some time, both Nia and the Pennsylvanian kids got to be proactively driving the plot forward, which was something that we were trying to give them an opportunity to do for a while now. But they obviously both did that in very different ways. So would any of our esteemed panel like to talk about that for a second?
Well, I found it really exciting to have Nia kind of come a little bit more towards the center of this chapter for a few reasons. One being that we get to see some other aspects of her personality in this very sort of high stakes situation that's happening to her with her parents being detained. And both sort of with the presence of her parents as well as how she's dealing with it, some very specific things are coming out in terms of how her upbringing has impacted her, and the resources that she brings to the situation that she's in from her background, from her coming from this provincial background and then going to an elite university and then becoming someone who's a part of a metropolitan community. And we see her, for instance, when she's traveling through the city and she's kind of code switching, and speaking as her parents would and behaving in a way that's indicative of her background. I thought that was a really great opportunity to mine those aspects of this character and to sort of bring forth even more so the diversity that you guys have already set up with this world, which is really, really great.
Yeah, it was really neat that we got the opportunity to see that come out. And it was also really neat to see, for me, the way that even via letter, Nia and her parents interact. Like there was the little bit of like coded language in the Nia's parents' letter, and sorry, I just blanked for one moment. So it's interesting to see how even though they've been so far apart for years and years, they're still on the same wavelength, that they were able to understand each other perfectly well with just a few words in a letter sent across however many miles that was. I thought that was really interesting.
Mm-hmm. And even, I don't know how much you guys want to get into it, but the whole process of deciding how she was going to get that message and what it would entail. I mean, there was a lot of conversation and discussion and trial and error in terms of what we came up with, which was the MNN Monastery Network. Is that what we came up with?
Yeah.
All of that was just a really, really fun, rich experience and process.
I remember there being a lot of back and forth to figure out exactly how that was going to work, and I'm glad with how we landed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it came to a pretty interesting spot. I don't want to cut short the discussion on Nia if anyone else has something to add to that. But otherwise, go for it, sorry.
No, I was going to say I love the leaping off of the part 2 of that question, which is about our 3 favorite Pennsylvanians. Like, along with Nia, I like the opportunity that they now have to leap in and start to take charge of their own narrative. I mean, it was Jen who said at the end of book 1, after the battle, like it's something along the lines of, I'm paraphrasing, but it's going to be up to us to get home. So, now they're actually, through the use of a fantastic theme song that in no way violates copyright, taking charge of that in a way that I sort of really welcome. They have been, I think, was it Chano just said, like, they've been battered around by life's events up until now. So it's a good opportunity for them to sort of like take control of it. I mean, let's see what happens to Nia as well. Now we're up to the bit where she's been captured, right?
Yes.
Great. So she's been captured. So let's see how.
Just found her. Yes.
Just to explain to the audience listening, we're writing, of course, a little bit ahead of what's actually been released, so sometimes we have to double check what's actually public yet.
Yes, we do.
Exactly.
We don't make it up on the spot and then immediately release it. as it will amaze people to know.
Yeah, so at the end of chapter 5, Nia had just returned to her friend Frederick and had found out that Frederick had betrayed her, essentially, and sort of told Relotit that Nia was with him.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, we'll get into this more in chapter 6, but I think part of what's interesting is that it wasn't even an intentional betrayal. It was just Frederick thinking he knew
that much is clear.
What was better for her by going to the authorities when she specifically asked him not to. Frederick is, I think, a well-meaning but patronizing dum-dum is kind of his defining character flaw.
Yes, and thank you to the YouTube chat for confirming to us where our own podcast is currently at. I appreciate that. But yeah, so like what Ian was saying, I find it, even as we're writing the show, it's clear that no one else is going to prioritize the kids finding a way back home. There's just, like, they have so much other stuff going on with them. Nia's dealing with her parents now. Regan is running from the elves, and everyone's dealing with all their new revelations that really no one else is going to take the time out of their day to look out for the kids. So if they want to find a way home, they're really going to have to do it themselves. One thing, YouTube chat just asked us whether the heist/caper was inspired by things like Mission Impossible or more like D&D, or where we got that inspiration from. Although the music was totally not copyright infringement on Mission Impossible, or however you want to call it.
Paramount, nothing at all to do with the
I haven't even heard of Mission Impossible.
Paramount Pictures or any other Viacom properties or anything like that.
But so, in my head, I was picturing more of like the Italian Job style movies where you get that, or like Ocean's 11 franchise where you get the voiceover of the action by the people doing it, which I think is hilarious. I really enjoyed that we were able to write that, and I really like the heist and/or caper joke. I was kind of pushing for that one a lot.
The voiceover is really fun, and I want to take the chance to shout out both Well, I want to shout out Jared Paul, who did our production recording, as well as he's done like most of Wolf 359 and Time Bombs and stuff. Who, like, a lot of what's giving you that feel that it is voiceover was literally just the way he mic'd it, and the way the performers did it in the room, which is essentially just getting up really close on the microphone like this, and you'd be amazed what a pronounced difference that can make. And so it was that, and then in post, we had Matt Boudreau, who mixed the episode, and we had some great feedback from our friends Sarah Shackett and Gabrielle Urbina to try and figure out how we were going to... Because at one point, you've got score, flashback, voiceover, and actual action happening all at the same time, and it was tricky to get it right, but I think it worked. So I just wanted to shout out all of the really smart people who helped us pull that off.
Cheers.
Yeah, absolutely. We did have...
I'm sorry, I just wanted to... There's a quick question from Discord that I think you can answer probably really quickly, Zach, from Kat, who asks, how long had you been planning the garbage joke?
That's a good question. I think... So, the way I did that is I was thinking for a long time about the general joke in the card game that was played. Mm-hmm. That I actually got the idea from this joke from actually playing this card game as a drinking game with a group of friends I had not spent much time with. And I realized how quickly the game stops having meaning if you don't know the people you're speaking with. So just to quickly rewind, it's the game where you hold up a card to your forehead and you can't see it, but everyone else can. And the rest of the room has to give you suggestions as to what your card is. And I discovered that even with people who live in the same city, grew up in the same city their whole lives, but just haven't spent every day with each other, the game kind of falls apart a bit. So that was when I had the idea to do that sort of joke, and then I literally Googled, like, weird name middle-aged food. and garbage was what popped up.
Oh, so that's an actual dish.
Yeah, there is actually something called garbage.
Oh,
it
cool.
Sure is.
So I really enjoyed that. We did get a question on the subreddit, so if anyone wants to, I just want to shout out, we have both a subreddit and a fan-driven Discord, so those are two places that people can go if they want to interact with other fans of the show.
How many platforms do we need?
All of them.
All of them.
We need
Okay.
every single platform.
Why else are we performers except for
Something
accolades
for
and
everyone.
adulation? Yeah.
So we got a question on the subreddit from user Bookworm, who mentioned that they want to hear Billy's bad singing of the theme song as well, instead of our really like nicely scored theme song, ba 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 ba, to have Billy doing it very Billy-ish, which would be hilarious. And then they also asked.
Now after that, I want Zach to do it.
I don't know how well that will work. But they also ask if any other characters or episodes we think would have a theme song. Does anyone have any good ideas for that? I was thinking, and this may be my own musical biases coming to light, but for Regan, I feel like most of Real Big Fish or 90s ska music, but
Wait, hang on.
especially the song Fuck Everything But Fuck You the Most, which I think applies.
That's gonna be the most controversial thing you've ever said.
I need to Google that.
I mean,
No, you don't. You don't. You're wrong. You're wrong. You don't.
Did 90s ska punk mercifully pass you by, Shannon? Is that...
I think. I mean, when he said ska, I thought about No Doubt, but that's she's probably derivative, I assume. Like, is
No,
that even?
she was part of. Is this now a third wave ska history? No Doubt was happening at around the same time as like Sublime and Real Big Fish on the West Coast, and like what was it? Catch-22 and Streetlight Manifesto, and who else was on the East? Whatever. We're not doing this.
There is that Real Big Fish song that's a fully joke, but it's Real Big Fish making fun of No Doubt for becoming famous.
Right.
But
that was kind of the whole circular firing squad of third wave ska, that as soon as someone became famous, then they were automatically a sellout. Anyway, okay. I do a lot of times think about Regan with God Save the Queen by the Sex Pistols.
No.
Okay.
Okay, now that my bad opinions are out of the way, does anyone have any other characters or scenes they want to, or episodes that they think have a theme music? Chat in YouTube chat is also very upset with me, just to throw that out there. So
That would be the worst thing, one of the worst things you've ever said.
I accept my being wrong. That's okay.
Say that, but I played in a ska band because of course I did. I'm just like, it's a matter of like how we interpret our pasts, and where Zach and I differ.
You just
That's
made
fair.
the internet roll its eyes,
Yeah,
Christian. So what was the question, Zach?
So the question is, in light of Billy making a theme song for that episode, does anyone have any ideas for other of our previous episodes, or just previous characters who would have a theme song to go with them?
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank right now. I'll probably
I think
think of it after the fact.
Shannon's introduction as a pirate deserves that. The theme song from Master and Commander, the Russell Crowe, Paul Bettany
Sure.
one. Anybody remember that one? No.
Let me hear a little bit, Ian.
That you may Google.
I'll go there. Fine.
It's like appropriately like it's equal parts inspiring and swashbuckling.
Okay.
Right.
And
What
what's
was
it
the-
again?
Master and Commander. It's a movie about white people sailing. It's fine.
Oh, okay. Oh, perfect. Master and Commander. I mean, I was sort of thinking of, sort of an appropriate kind of like reggae or reggae influence song, but again, it's not coming to me right
This
now.
is not that. Yeah, this is.
I
That would
figured
be
as much.
wild if that were
But
if Master and Commander had a rig.
Chad is pointing out that the pirates do already have a theme song, which is
Yeah.
fair.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that doesn't count.
Oh, so there's the answer to the question. We can move on.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we can move on, and if anyone has any more thoughts or wants to criticize me more for my opinions.
I would say, and this is going to be like, everyone's going to yell at me for being basic here, but like, I do think about the kids and Born in the USA a lot, because I've said this before, that like, I think it's pretty central to the show that all three of the kids have kind of been, in their own ways, brutalized by America, and that's very much what that song is about, I think. So as some like in my fantasy world where we like have a music budget, there is at some point like a flashback to all three of the kids kind of going about their lives in Pennsylvania before any of this happened, with Born in the USA tying it together. I think that is very thematically central.
Hey, you want a Bruce Springsteen song? That's off brand for you.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to quickly throw out there, chat has pointed out that I was apparently saying the word chat with too much of a D and confusing everyone, so my apologies. I am referring to the chat window in YouTube.
Like you were saying, Chad, like a dangling Chad, like a hanging Chad,
Or like
a person named Chad.
Yeah, like a person named Chad. They said
or like the country.
Yes.
Right.
So I will try to enunciate better.
I think that's a little bit on them. Like, in context clues can help. Not. I mean, look, the fans are always right, but
That's fair.
it's an
Well-
audio.
Yeah, everybody do context clues. Okay, what's the next question?
So moving on, I just wanted to give us a minute to talk for a bit about finally meeting First Snow and the village of, what was that abbreviation again, Christian?
Pla-
Gotten it already. Great.
Yeah. It's Topodalatum.
Topodalatum. The people to the left of the...
Yeah, the left. That's it. The people to the lands east of the mountains.
The people to the lands east of the mountains. Okay. So, after all is said and done, we first introduced the existence of the Orcish people way back in, I believe, in Chapter 1, Episode 1 of Book 1. We finally learned the twist. We were building up to it for a while, but at the end of Book 1, we officially learned that they're just people from a different part of the world, which hopefully wasn't too surprising for people following our clues. And now, finally, after another 5 chapters, we have actually the camera of the show, so to speak, has moved over the mountains, and we have met First Snow. Would anyone like to speak about that for a minute?
Yeah, it's like the Game of Thrones intro where like they pick up from like King's Landing and then move all the way. It's like, oh my god, calf now! Wow.
Right.
No, in all seriousness, I love it. I love getting the chance to flesh out different parts of the world that you know must be there. Like we've instinctively known there must be this land for a while, and now we get to see how it functions. We can argue about what to call these people and what acronyms to use, but like that's the thing. Like we've been dangling this tantalizing
Carrot.
this sort of carrot. Yeah, this bright shiny object. Like it's there, but now
You've
get
seen the
to
tip
you
of
get
the
to see it.
iceberg. Now here's some more. Now here's more.
That's the analogy. Iceberg. Good one.
Yeah. No, and I mean, I think that scheduling didn't work out today. I really wish that Riley or April were here to talk about some of this, but there's an argument to be made. Maybe if I went and did this all again, that we would have gotten some of that sooner. I think there is something to be said for yanking the rug out from under the audience and having them kick themselves for their bad assumptions. But I think there's also, maybe I would have done this sooner, but it's also like, there's a lot there that we wanted to tread carefully on and make sure we were doing respectfully and smart. And I think a little bit, I can just speaking for myself as a writer, I think maybe I was cheating a little because I was scared to take it on. But I'm very glad that we've got some people that we're working with now who can, our cast members and our sensitivity readers who can help us do this right, because it really is an important part of the story, and I'm excited to do more of it.
Mm-hmm. I want to throw in, there was a question from chat. Who chose the accents for the Topodalatum people? Yeah, from Chad, our friend Chad.
Chad?
Yeah, our friend Chad.
Oh, or do you mean like the country? I can't.
Actually, our friend Chad lives in Chad.
There you go.
Chad from Chad.
Landlocked? Let's see. I feel like I knew this in Mo-UN.
In any case, to keep us on track slightly,
Right?
chat has asked who chose the accents for the Topodalatum, the people. And I want to talk about this for a second, because this was actually something that we thought a lot about, and I hope that it came through a bit, is we wanted to have a way of showing that these people when they're speaking amongst themselves, of course, they're speaking in their own language. So we asked the actors to sort of minimize the accent in general when they're speaking amongst themselves, and then to accentuate it when they're speaking ostensibly the common tongue, as a way to sort of shortcut that, you know, when people are speaking amongst themselves, they don't necessarily notice their own accents, but when they're speaking a foreign language, they may tell it. So that was something we were trying to accomplish. In terms of the specific accents, Christian, do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, and I'm gonna stumble on myself a little bit because it's, you know, none of this works it perfectly one to one, and it's always a little bit of like, okay, what could make sense in the world? Where are your cast's strengths and everything? But basically, the thinking for me is that, you know, much earlier in the history of Jordan, there was far less division between the peoples east of the mountains and west of the mountains. And then at a certain point in history, as you know, as the elves kind of imposed their political will on the world, that division became much more pronounced. And so anyone east of the mountains who kind of learned the quote unquote common tongue from, did I just say, sorry, anyone west? Wait, no, it's Topotolatum is wrong. It's to the people to the lands west of the. It's Topotolatum.
Yes, you are correct.
Okay.
This may have been my fault. I may have said it wrong.
Okay. So if you are to the west of the mountains and you learned some variation of the common tongue from the east of the mountains, that would have been passed down to you from kind of an earlier version of that language, if that makes sense. And so the idea being that, you know, since we're using English as the common tongue as one of our big cheats in the show, that earlier versions of English would have been much more Germanic than modern English, and so that's why it's kind of a German accent, and that's why even though Arden and Maguire are very Celtic names, when they try to speak the common motorcycle, Arden has a German accent also because it's a Arnold Schwarzenegger parody, so that all fits. Maguire has learned the common tongue a little closer to the present day, and so that's the deal with First Snow, that when she learned some version of the common tongue passed down from an earlier version where it was much more Germanic sounding.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it did.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Way to have conviction in your ideas, Christian.
I've assembled this whole story with duct tape over the course of like 6 years, and I never remember what I did smart or not.
We had to talk about it very early on when we first introduced the Urket.
Yeah.
In battle, and I remember you were ultra specific about what you wanted then, both for dialect and like any idea like what their different shaped mouths would create as far as sounds. So yeah, do you remember that back in the day?
I don't remember different shaped mouths because
you were talking about like
them.
you were talking about like a different that sort of it's not a growl, it's the sort of gruffer cadence that they have.
Oh, maybe I was thinking along the lines of like consonants in Welsh that non-Welsh speakers can hurt their mouths doing.
Yes, like the L's that go everywhere. Yeah.
Right.
So I also want to add there was a question from our friend Chad in the chat again. Do
I don't believe you anymore.
well, either that or I invented this question out of my brain, which is also possible. But the question is, do these folks have Morse code? And is the system more like a telegram or like semaphore flags? And it is supposed to be exactly like a telegram with Morse code. This was one of those.
The way that they communicate through the wires, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't just stumble upon the exact specifics of Morse code, but yeah, that's the idea. It's like it's shorts and longs over the wire.
Yeah, and part of the idea, again, with the whole sort of subverting expectation things, is a lot of the whole first book, when we were only hearing about these people from the rumors on the Jordan side of the mountains, we hear all about how, like, sort of primitive and barbaric these people essentially are. So we really liked the idea of pulling the rug out from under the audience again by, like, not only are they not primitive, they've developed way better technology in some cases than the people we've been following have. So we really liked the idea of giving them telegram or telegraph, which I don't completely know the difference, actually, between telegram and telegraph.
As a complete contrast to, like, our main party who's having to figure out how to, like, intercept pigeons and things to send messages.
Right.
Yeah, so I thought that was an interesting thing. Chat has also asked if this was influenced by Louis Ryle. I'll be honest, I don't know who that is. Has anyone heard of Louis Ryle by any chance?
I have not.
Well,
so no. The answer is no.
This is clearly someone we'll have to look into, so thank you for that. But we were not directly influenced by Louis Ryle, but thank you. We moving on from the specifics of the language and the technology, we are going to hear a lot more from First Snow coming up soon, so we're very excited to share that. But from what we've seen so far, would any of our panel like to add anything else?
I can't remember what I'm allowed to say or not.
Yeah.
So, essentially what has happened to this point in the script is we've essentially met First Snow and Steady River, who is the town's grandmother, but
The
Christian,
matriarch figure, yeah.
Yeah, the matriarch figure. And we have seen that First Snow can send telegraphs using magic, essentially by sending electricity through these wires, and and we got the message. That we saw her receiving the message that their central town wants more corn.
I'm sorry. I'm also trying to pay attention to Discord. What's the question?
Oh, the question is, do you have anything else you want to add about First Snow and the Orc Village now without spoiling anything for the next chapter?
Oh, I love First Snow, and I love the character from like started. So I'm very excited I'm very excited to keep exploring that.
I mean, and this might seem a little sort of on the nose or obvious, but I mean, it's nice to have a spotlight on a society that is matriarch driven, and yet another strong young woman identifying character and voice to follow.
Mm-hmm.
There's a really interesting and in-depth question from Discord that ties into what we were saying about like whether we should have done the stuff with the people in the West sooner. Boy, that's not so bad, huh? The people in the West.
The people in the West is okay.
But there's someone posted on our subreddit a while ago, like about a year ago, about the danger of a single story from a TED Talk, and like basically about, it's like, I think it's too much to go all the way into here, but it's basically the criticism of, like, the danger of, we're only hearing about first, we're only hearing about orcs based on rumors from their oppressors, and then we're only hearing about them kind of as victims, and that's, like, I think it's a fair criticism, and I think my answer to it is kind of what I said before, of, like, I wish I had been in a place to deal with it sooner, and kind of diversify that story. But we'll post that thread and the link to the TED Talk in the show notes, because I think it's a really interesting question and a fair criticism.
Oh, so you're saying someone in real time just emailed and or messaged and said that, put forward this question or this issue?
They kind of re-upped a thread from the subreddit that's about a year old, that we talked about at the time. But yeah, I think it's a really good question.
Mm-hmm.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah,
I do think there's something to be said for, like, setting them up to knock them down, so to speak. Like,
yeah,
I know it's a tough, like, I fully understand the risk of, if you just set it up and then fail to knock it down, like, the time in which you're just setting it up can be challenging. But I think
right.
There's something also to be gained in terms of sort of, you get more of an impact to your audience in how strongly their expectations are subverted if you've allowed them to be built up a bit, would be my argument. And I know there's a line between, like, well, how long do you let that draw out? And it's very possible we still drew that out way too long. But I think there is some argument to be made about that.
No, I mean, I think there's because when we started writing this, which people are now reminding me is close to 7 years ago somehow. My favorite novel of all time is Catch-22, and I love the way that that book really yanks the floor out from under you, kind of the way you're saying, that where, like, stuff that you thought was genuinely hilarious in the beginning when you read it, and you were clearly meant to think that, you start to realize as the book goes on, it's like, oh, this is like people coping with trauma in the best way they can, and it's like, it hits you in the gut when you finally realize everything that that the characters have been through, and I remember that being really effective, the way that book basically made me feel some level of shame for the assumptions I had made going into that, and so I think when we first started planning this story, that is what I was trying to replicate. But I think that there is a fundamental tension in terms of who is this story for, in the sense of, like, is this meant to be your quote unquote typical high fantasy audience, like an adolescent white man, or is the story for people who have been excluded from kind of fantasy and its subculture until now, or is it for people who have been in the subculture and maybe haven't thought critically enough about that subculture? And I think there's always been a tension in the show of, like, a little bit wanting to do both, and I'm still not 100% sure that it's possible to do both, but I think both are valuable, so we're gonna keep trying, and I guess when we're done with this thing in 12 years, people can decide whether we succeeded or not.
Well, if I can jump in, I without
please.
knowing the full context of the thread that you're referring to, but kind of having read it from the beginning in order to jump in and be a part of it as a writer, it sounds like what you're saying is you introduce the characters, like you said, from the perspective of what the oppressors have to say about them, and then you shine a light on the actual sort of victimization that they experience. But then in this chapter, you shine a light on the people themselves.
Right.
And I think that, that is a realistic sort of paradigm or sort of experience, particularly in the 21st century, in terms of revisionism and revisionist history, that is very often how underrepresented or so-called minority people have kind of been historically treated. That very often narratives, particularly when they're not written by the people themselves, do come at it from those two angles. And so you have a situation, thankfully, where more voices are being added to the canon and people are being able to sort of represent themselves, and or have more sympathetic representations of them, even if they are from people who aren't within the community. And so there's this sort of meta thing that seems to be happening with this show in terms of what's happening out sort of in the world and in general and across various sort of entertainment and media industries. And as someone who's, a person of color that's new to the genre, that's new to the genre. I've been writing for the show and involved for 2 years.
Sure.
New to the genre, relatively new to the program. I do feel like you're doing both of those things. I feel like, and that's actually what has appealed to me about being involved in the show and staying involved in the show, is that I do feel like you are both trying to give a voice and include the voices of, people who might not readily be a part of this audience or a part of these narratives. And at the same time, the audience, the sort of built-in audience that you have, you are trying to help to expand their capacity, for other voices and perspectives and the nuance that's involved with that. So from that standpoint, I think that you're on the right track in the very least. And one of the first conversations that you and I had about this is that, nobody gets it right 100% of the time. But I think that when you really when you're committed to having the different voices at the table and empowering those voices to really be a part of the thing and really, vital in shaping the thing, you're going to be moving in the right direction.
Well, I'm always glad to hear you feel that way, Shannon. And also, I think that's one of the benefits of having such a long-standing project, is like the show has room to learn. It's not like kind of like if you wrote like a movie, it's like you got to cram everything you think you understand right now into 2 hours, and then it's kind of fixed, and having this long show where the characters can grow and learn as the writers grow. As much as I'm like, why did I start something so big? I don't know how else, this story gets told without the expanse of time,
Yeah. And there is, I think, a flip side to that, which, the pacing of our show is what it is, but I think some of our pacing gets a little bit, it's sort of, we forget how drawn out this show is, because we could say something like, okay, we'll show, this perspective for 2 chapters, and then we'll invert it on its head in the 3rd chapter. And that sounds like it's pretty quick. But in the real world, that could take us a year and a half to actually release. Right. So that can sort of...
It boggles my mind that the span of the show has been just a few weeks. The show itself in real time has been like a month or something, or
something like that. Yeah, maybe 5 or 6 weeks.
It's wild.
But we're doing about a week a year at this point. And the fact that when you said you've been on the show for 2 years, I kind of melted into my chair for a moment.
Isn't that wild? The spring of 2017, the spring of 2019.
The same thing. Yeah.
Anyway, all right, we got to move on before I just turn into the guy at the end of Last Crusade.
So moving on real quick, those were all really interesting discussions, though.
I think I get that reference.
We had a few questions about character appearances in this chapter, between the bar woman Madame Bailey describing between Madame Bailey describing the appearance of Gwen and Arlene, and also from Relotit trying to describe the people she's looking for, the audience actually received more visual information about the characters than they had in a long while. So we got some questions on Twitter about this from Jess. Asked many of these questions, so thank you, Jess. So when and how do we as writers decide the character's visual appearance? And then also when we're writing, how much is visualizing the character a part of the writing process? Or during the acting steps, how is visualization of the characters part of the acting process as well? I sort of combined 3 questions all at once there, so feel free to break it into pieces if you'd like.
Yeah, I'm gonna let the performers go first.
Yeah, that's a great series of questions.
Shannon, why don't you answer the question?
Well, I'm gonna start. If I'm frank, I think that the 2 characters that come to mind for me are Ren and Mildred, and quite frankly, I just sort of see myself, sort of an iteration of myself that is connected to the character as it's written and or developed. But interestingly enough, someone created, I think maybe Jess actually, there was a fan art, someone who created fan art of Ren that I thought was like so spot on. It's dope. As well as this poster that we had for this chapter, has a picture of Mildred and Ben, which I also feel is pretty spot on. So I'm sort of rambling here a little bit, but I guess the short answer is, in terms of, when I'm developing a character, I'm thinking through what we develop and what's said about the character, in the same way that I build a character outside of a voice acting environment. What's said about the character, how does this person speak, where are they from, all of that. And I essentially use myself as a vessel, for that person, and to kind of channel parts of myself that work and the parts that don't, I don't use. And then I guess I just fall back on, the fan art that comes forward, and going forward when I'm thinking about the characters, and when I'm performing the characters, those images will pop into my head, and I can kind of incorporate that as well.
Yes, to everyone listening out there, we've been waiting for you to tell us what they look like.
They've already, the Discord is, when you said the fans are always right, they just, now they're insisting that elves have fur, which they've been doing for a while as a very bad headcanon, but now they're saying it's canon now because we said the fans are always right. So just...
See what you did, Ian.
No, well, but then Shannon, to be fair,
dear.
you just said that you looked to fan art for inspiration. So watch out now. That's RIP your mentions, I guess.
Yeah. So just to jump ahead for a second, because we did have a question about this. A lot of people on the Discord were asking if the cast and crew see all of both the sort of artistic fan art as well as the more memey fan art that they all create. So
it's very diplomatic.
I will say,
can people see us as well right now? I'm assuming yes.
Yes, if they're on YouTube.
Which is why I haven't stood up, so you can't see I'm wearing no pants.
Yes.
But no, I think so. Just so that if you can see us, Christian is burying his face in his hands at the moment, proving that the answer is no.
So.
I think
I haven't seen very many, other than sort of what I think sometimes Christian will retweet them in his Twitter feed. I'll see things there, but I don't know that I've seen any actual. Oh no, there was
no. Hang on.
no,
at
but
all.
there was a point. There was a point where I think there was a campaign going on and people were creating memes.
Oh,
And
yes.
I think I
Yeah,
saw
yeah.
a few of those.
That was all really nice and
Oh,
and
no,
sweet.
hang on. You have no idea how boyishly excited Christian was at seeing all of this fan art come out when it first started too, and how he would share it with everybody.
Yep.
I think connecting it all though together, I think from with the main characters, definitely. I think we have actually had a very, I at least have had a clear idea of what it is they look like. The fan art has sort of been like, oh yeah, no, I can see how that works. But I kind of enjoy letting sort of physical traits go sort of drip by drip, if you know what I mean. Yeah, just lets imagination take over a little bit. And I don't think that any of them are sort of, I don't think that there's been anything sort of like massively surprising, like, you know, and you know, nobody said, and it turns out Sir Brennan was a ginger, like nothing like that. But
It might have been when he was young. I'm not gonna lie.
yes.
Way to throw a wrench in Ian's point there.
All right. But no, I think that I remember having like conversations, like, again, very early on back in the day, of what it is that they might look like, or sort of getting into specifics. I think especially with the main characters, we've been with them long enough that we can sort of understand what they might look like, how they might dress. And so we've just sort of let these images that we've all agreed on come into the writing.
Mm-hmm.
They're all nodding. Everybody just listening.
Yeah,
They're all
so-
nodding in
Well,
agreement.
there is the logo that
Proving
has,
I'm right.
there's the logo that has all the main characters in it. So I definitely envision those, you know, those physical traits for those characters.
Right.
But as we introduce people who are not in that sort of logo, you know, you do sort of think through, okay, well, what exactly does that person look like? And
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can I give kind of like a crass and cynical answer? Not even cynical. I'm just like, if I'm being honest, I fix in my mind as much as I have to for the character to make sense. Like anything that is immediately important to the character, that's like that is fixed in my mind, and then beyond that, I kind of I leave myself room, honestly, because maybe you discover something interesting as you're going, and like, we don't have to show them yet, we don't have to draw them yet, so why not leave yourself the room? I like, I'm not the type of writer who, like, as soon as before I start writing a character, I know like their 20 favorite songs and, you know, what they had for, I know like some people are, and I totally see the value in that. That's just like not me. So I think I fix in my mind what is necessary to get the character started, and then I leave myself room to discover beyond that.
Mm-hmm. And then just to add, for me, and maybe this is not the typical way, but when I'm writing, I rely on the voice a lot more than I rely on the visual, and that's not necessarily the actor's voice until the actor starts taking it over, if that makes sense. So when we're writing a new character, I need to have a voice in my head and hear, like, I have to actually hear a character saying the things that I'm writing as I write them. And then once we hand that over to the actors and the actors actually perform it, of course the voice isn't the same, but then my writing voice sort of morphs to match now the actor's performance of it, and it sort of becomes a feedback loop, to me at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd like to, as an aside, the YouTube chat was trying to justify the elves are furry thing, and I don't even want to go there. I'm not going to justify your justification. I won't deny your personal justification, but I'm not going to justify it either. Ian, at one point we got a question. Someone said that maybe at some point you had said that you've made your own, or the cast has made their own Once and Future Nerd memes or fan art. Is this a thing that you remember?
Oh, but that was for intramural sharing. That was not to be made public. That is not canon. That is our taking the piss, as my people would say.
That's very fair.
Did I talk about that? My God, I feel like I'm disappointing you, internet.
I feel like it might have come
whatever.
from the writers' room group chat at some point, which, like you said, is kind of an inside thing.
Well,
I mean, I've said a load of things on a lot of chats, like, you know.
That's fair. Well, I'll just leave it with
I
this.
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember what I said. I'm sorry, internet. I wish I did know.
Entire internet, he's sorry.
Yes, I mean, I'm sorry.
Now we've got it on
internet.
tape.
Well, I'll leave this whole fan art discussion with if anyone is interested in listeners or us on the chat. There is a fan-run Discord. We don't run any of it at all, but there are a lot of legitimately amazing artists making really incredible fan art that gets posted there. There's also a lot of memes and hastily drawn paint images there as well. But if anyone would like to see
John Mulaney
these,
with elf ears.
yes, a lot of Guy Fieri-based stuff as well. If anyone is interested in this, you can go to our website, onceandfuturenerd.com, and there is a tab on the top called Discuss, and you should find a link to the Discord. So if anyone is interested in that, I will point you in that direction, and you should be able to see sort of the best of both the artistic and the memes.
Yeah. And there's one channel in that Discord that Zach and I participate in from time to time. And the rest of it we kind of leave as a place for the fans to discuss outside of our, awareness necessarily.
Yes, and while we're on the topic of art, one thing I just want to add really quick, this should pop up on the YouTube in a second. For this chapter, for the first time, we commissioned exclusive chapter-specific art, and so this art was created by John Flanagan, who is our official our official artist for the show, and he's an incredible artist, and he made this really cool poster. And to shamelessly shill for a second, if you are a patron of the show on Patreon, you will shortly be receiving a copy of this. For depending on which tier of patron you are, you will be receiving a copy of this in the mail. So it is incredible. For those who asked, this art was drawn by John Flanagan. If you are interested in learning more about John Flanagan, his portfolio is at jgrayflanagan.myportfolio.com. So please check it out. Support John. He's awesome. I am getting some messages on our discussion chat, so I'm getting a little distracted for a second. Moving forward from this, we've discussed the artwork, we've discussed the character's canon appearance. We received one question about the dream sequences, which have been popping up occasionally. And
Zach, would you rather, just because we've got some hard outs coming up, would you rather do that or process and team staying together and stuff?
Oh, that's a good point. So let's just say, short answer for the dream sequence stuff, you will learn more eventually. We'll leave it at that for now. Let's talk a little bit about the process. We got a question on Twitter asking, how has the team managed to stay together so well over the years? And how have we kept the same writing style together over the years? And I thought this would be something interesting to discuss, particularly because Ian is here, and Ian has been working with us for 6-7 years now. And Shannon, although 2 years is a long time, you're still the relative newcomer. So I wanted to hear.
I like how 2 years we still treat her as the rookie in the group.
Well, no, now we got Riley.
Yeah.
We got new rookie.
I mean, my short answer is Christian and Zach. That like whatever happens, there's the two of you as the mainstays behind it. Was the question how do we not get tired of it?
Well, that can be part of it.
How does it remain cohesive? That's the impression.
Oh, how does it
Yes.
remain cohesive? Well, because I mean, we all do. Like all of us get to go off and do other things as well. We're all involved in other projects, other studies. But this is something that we keep on getting to come back home to excitedly. It's not something. I mean, unless you're Christian and Zach, it's not something that you spend every waking moment considering. No. But like when we do all get together again, we can throw ourselves into it, and it's that feeling of coming home back to this thing we've created that is sprawling and gargantuan, and when will it ever end 12 years from now? With newbie.
Uh-oh. Okay, well, hello everybody. Sorry for the technical issues, but I guess at this point I am going to sign us off. Thank you everybody for tuning in to our slightly technical issue-filled live stream of Book 2, Chapter 5 of Ask the Once and Future Nerd. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed it. We will stick a bloopers reel from this chapter of the podcast into our podcast feed, so please check that out if you're interested in it. And just one quick shout out while we have you all here, our own Greg Schultz, who is awesome and couldn't be on the stream with us today, but Greg Schultz is the voice of Yellowween, for those of you who don't know, and he was also in another project recently called Full Metal Bazinga, which I would recommend you all check out. It is a mostly improvised fantasy audio drama about that famous story of the never-ending battle between two mythical all-powerful beings, namely Chuck Lorre, the executive producer of the hit sitcom Big Bang Theory, and Bill Prady, the head writer of same sitcom. It really goes places. So yeah, I strongly recommend it. They just finished their final episode, so